basically like flooded my house and caused $77,000 of damage. That like money does solve a lot of problems. When I was younger, I was chasing money. And then whenever I got money, then maybe I was chasing power. Kind of like the light bulb moment where it's like, well, if I expect my employees to take pride in the way that they dress and the way that they speak and being consistent content creators on social media and to live a life of character and integrity, I had to actually...
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Jeremy, welcome to Builders. Thank you so much for being here today with me. I'm so excited to have you with us. You are a penultimate builder, the CEO of Encore Search Partners, and so many other things. And I can't wait to dig into your story. So thank you so much for your time. And can you, in your own words, kind of tell us who you are and what you're building?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeremy Jenson, the founder and CEO of Encore Search Partners, we're a 45-person direct hire executive search recruiting firm here in Houston, Texas. And so basically, companies retain our services to poach high-level performers from their competitors. And so I started my first business way back in 2010, kind of like changed our business model in 2013. And so you fast forward 12 years, now we're doing about 13 million in revenue at 30% net profit. I've got several key executives and mid-level managers that run the company. And so what I'm building now is essentially another family. That's what I'm really, really optimistic and excited about building right now. And so I got married very young at 24, had 3 amazing children, a great, beautiful ex-wife that I've been divorced from for about 6 years now. Actually, tomorrow is the anniversary of our divorce. But about 5 months ago, I got re-engaged to an amazing young professional. She's in graduate school, former professional athlete, 4.0 summa cum laude graduate, and I'm just really excited about having more kids and building an incredible legacy for my future for years to come.
Amazing. What an exciting time for you.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned it. So you're recently engaged. I do want to dig into building, but I know you once had a podcast with Houston's most eligible bachelors. Is that right?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I pride myself on, and this might be why I'm successful in business, is I've always thought about what do I want more of? And then I have a unique talent on reverse engineering what I need to do in order to acquire them, right? And so when I fast forward all the way back to 2020, we basically were sent to live at home, right, in isolation. And here I was like, unmarried, single guy, and spent a lot of time probably on dating apps just because I was bored, right? And if you'll remember, like the first date back in 2020 was like at the park and going for a walk, right? But I'd reached this point in my life where I realized that I wanted more cool single guy friends because I was so recently divorced that all my friends were like married dads in the suburbs. And so whenever it's like, well, if I want cool single guy friends, let me just start a podcast where I interview Houston's most eligible bachelors, right? And then if you spend an hour with somebody, They would come to my home. They would see this badass $1 million house. They'd get to know me, my opinions. They'd learn more about my business, and we would organically become good friends over the course of just talking about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. But one of the challenges of having that dating podcast was the real good guys that had high character and integrity and good family values. I might get like 1,000 listens on their episode, but like the fuck boys, right? The dudes that had crazy stories, man, they would go viral. I'd get tens of thousands of listens, And so it was like, man, this is kind of like doing the opposite of my personal brand that I wanted it to do, because people were associating me more with like crazy stories. And it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to meet my future wife. I can't be talking about, Cancun 2017.
Yeah. Cancun, it's like Vegas. What happens in Cancun? Fun fact, there are no direct flights between Cancun and Vegas. I know this because Cancun's my home airport.
Yeah, okay.
And I have determined that it's because it clearly is just too dangerous to connect those two.
Yeah, they're competitors too, right? Yeah. They're like, yeah. No way.
Yeah. But for me, when I have to go do business things and I cannot fly direct, it makes no sense to me.
Well, you know what the solution is, Alex? Just make more money. That way you can fly private. And guess what? You can fly direct.
Working on it. It's I'm not kidding. It's on
your vision board.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's funny because it's like, I don't know, as this like sage old 41-year-old dad, it's really funny to admit that like money does solve a lot of problems,
It solves problems, but I think again, it's about like we all choose our problems as well, right? Yeah. And so if you have the money without the personal development, the growth mindset.
Wow. So true. Which kind of like leads us into what you do for a living, right? But, I had created a tremendous amount of business success up until, right, I was divorced in 2019, that I split my assets. She got, more than half, probably about 60%. And I got 40% in my company, which was a good deal for me. But with that being said, on the surface, I should have been the happiest guy in the world, but I was still like unfulfilled and creating a lot of like self-damage from some of the like very gluttonous, selfish decisions that I was making on a day-to-day basis. And so I'd hit rock bottom on January 6, 2021, and then started working with a life coach a couple of weeks later after I realized, man, I need to get my shit together.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, what did that look like? Like, how did you know that you would hit rock bottom?
Yeah, I don't want to go into too many details, but, I basically like flooded my house and caused $77,000 of damage that was completely self-induced in a drunken stupor, right? And so, when you wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go pee and you're stepping in, water, and you realize like, I can't even get mad about this, like I'm lucky that nobody got hurt, right? So, it's financial damage, but it was really induced by some of the selfish decisions that I'd been making, for months. And COVID kind of like really accelerated a lot of that weird lifestyle that I was living for about a year, because I was just kind of like exploiting what I had an abundance of, which was capital resources. And I was throwing parties and I was spending time with people that I shouldn't have been spending time with. And it was very, very destructive. But fortunately, my business weathered the storm, right? Literally the storm that was in my house. And we were able to come out on the other side stronger as a person, as a father, as a professional, as an investor, as an innovator. These were all roles that I play that I'm really, 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 really proud of.
Yeah. Well, and it's, cliches are cliches for a reason, but those kinds of character builders, hardships build character. Now, they can go different directions, but it's, the old adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think it sounds like for you went through a piece of what I really think is fundamental, which is you had to look at and define what success meant to you and what success on your terms looked like, right? And
Yep.
money is a lubricant. It can solve problems, but it's only going to get you whatever direction you're facing. So if you are facing in the wrong direction, it's going to get you there real quick.
No, you're absolutely right. It's funny that you said money is a lubricant because I think my mind went straight into the gutter whenever you said that. But
Me too.
I'd never heard that expression before. But no, I mean, money absolutely is an amplifier of whatever character you have, right? If you're greedy or selfish, it accelerates that, right? It amplifies that. If you're selfless and giving or nurturing and kind, right, it can really, right, accelerate that, right? But it's funny that you talk about success because after I had experienced this success with this dating podcast and shut it down after a year, fast forward 2 years later, it was like, I want to meet innovators, successful people in the city of Houston, essentially to top grade my social circle. And so I started another podcast called The Path to Success. And so I interviewed 14 different guests. These are influencers, professional athletes, right? Experienced entrepreneurs, innovators, creators, artists, right? And I met some of the most amazing people in the city of Houston. And it is funny because everybody kind of had a different definition of success. It was unique to them. And funny enough, my definition over the last 20 years in business as an adult, my definition of success has evolved. Probably every 5 years, it's changed.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect explanation, right? People who from the outside, everyone is lauding their success. But if you ask them what success means to them, they would all tell you something different, right? And I think many people who are truly successful have defined it for themselves. So I'd love to hear kind of what does it mean for you today? And, it sounds like you are an incredible community builder, right? Like you were like, I would like to know these people, and then just created a path for that, which is amazing. So,
Absolutely.
how you did that and what does success look like for you today? I know, your business has continued to grow. You're newly engaged. Like you said, building a family and a legacy is really important. I'd love to dig a little more into that.
Yeah, I mean, this is like it could be a 1 hour answer, right? But, for the sake of brevity, I'll say that, whenever I was younger, I was chasing money. And then whenever I got money, then maybe I was chasing power. And when I got power, then I was chasing influence. And there was all these things. And essentially they were moving targets, right? Because when is it ever enough, right? Like when I was, 14, I wanted to make 100 grand. Well, guess what? I made 100,000 whenever I was 20 years old, right? So like that number, it kind of evolves, right? And then you kind of think that, if I just made $1 million, or if I saw $5 million in the bank, or if I had a $2 million house, or if I had the beautiful wife, there's all these things that you're chasing. But if you're constantly chasing, that's the problem. It's like there's never like a situation where you're like, I've made it, right? And so I went to a legacy planning seminar in February of 2024. And it was a 6-hour workshop led by a gentleman by the name of Andy Bailey that has a program called Boundless, but he owns a firm called Petra Coaching. And through that discovery process of all of these different modules and exercises, I realized that my why was tied to my children. I've got 3 amazing young boys, 12, 10, and 8, about to be 9. And these guys are studs, straight A students, standout athletes, the highest character and integrity that you could ever imagine, well-mannered, humble, grateful, kind, ambitious, creative, social. And I realized that it was really tied to them. And so coming out of that legacy planning seminar, I had this clarity of mind that I wanted more children, right? That it was like, this force multiplier of my brand, of my legacy, the influence that I could create in the community could be exponentially amplified if I just created a bunch more mini-me's. You know what I'm saying? And I think that so many entrepreneurs, they think of wealth creation as their own responsibility, right? Oh, I've got to make $100 million and then my kids are going to be the steward of wealth. Well, guess what? I'm still focused on creating wealth for my family, But I'm really more concerned with reinvesting that wealth into their character, their skills development, their social network. Because if I can turn them into the wealth creators, what's that going to do for my legacy for generations to come? It becomes way bigger than dad's $7 million house in River Oaks. You see what I'm saying? And so that's
Exponential
what I'm
wealth
focused on.
and
Exponential,
I would
right?
say impact generation, really. Like I think they go hand in hand, at least for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, that kind of like spawned the search for the future mother of my children. And it brought me to LinkedIn, actually. I created a LinkedIn Boolean string focusing on Division One athletes that graduated with a 4.0 GPA, high honors, that had traditional family values and integrity. And I found an incredible woman that was in graduate school, right, getting her master's, who was a professional swimmer that moved here at the age of 19 and got a full ride scholarship to be a D1 athlete and a multi-year conference champion, right? A Polish national team record holder in the 100 and 200-meter backstroke, traditional European family values, great relationship with her parents. And I'm like, oh man, let me put a ring on this. Let me go have some more pro athlete straight A kids, right? With an amazing mom that's amazing at every single thing that I'm not great at. And then what's that going to do for my life? It's just made it exponentially greater in so many different ways.
Do you think that being an executive search, someone who finds tough to find professional talent, helped you to, define and find your optimal partner?
I don't think it. I know it with 100% certainty. Absolutely. And I'm very proud of it. I proposed to her on TV on the local Fox channel. And whenever they produced the episode, it said, a LinkedIn DM to marriage proposal, right? We laugh that I found her on LinkedIn, right? Now, obviously, the love and respect and admiration that we have for one another was built over time organically and authentically, right? It's not like I just made her an offer and said, will you be my future wife, right? But, I had to do the self work in order to be qualified to pull this an amazing young woman.
Mm.
I got on semaglutide way back in 2023, lost 80 pounds, right? Got on a skincare routine, got a hair transplant done, right? There's not to mention the 4 years of self work in personal and professional development that I use with my Vistage business coach, with my personal life coach, right? Repairing and investing in developing relationships with my ex wife, with my mom, with my brother, with my children, with my executive team, right? And it's years of investing and developing myself into becoming the man that she can be proud to build a future with. That's what gave me the mechanism to find my dream for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, I think back to I came from, athletics where my identity was so tied to who I was. And then in my professional career, and I promised myself I would never do that again. It's a story for another day. My professional career, honestly, kind of did it again. I really tied it, to what I was building because I was there all the time. But I also was really tried to delineate. So like when I was at work, it was this. I didn't have any public social media. I didn't really socialize with clients or team members. Like I really had this delineation. And I know for myself, as I've gone from corporate to entrepreneurship, having startups, building teams, and now advising a lot of other leaders, founders, and entrepreneurs, I have found that delineation just doesn't work anymore. And actually, I've been able to really build better teams, grow faster, build better companies by being more me at work and by understanding the kind of interplays between, who I am and my leadership style and, what I genuinely want to do and the culture I want to build and the people I want to be around and the people that thrive being around me. I'm curious because what you just said sparked that for me. Like, becoming the person to be with the person you want, but to also build the business and the team and the executive relationships that you have built.
Mhm.
What do you think your kind of personal goals and experience, have they helped or hindered your professional career path and
Yeah, great question. I think being a father was really the catalyst that opened my eyes to a lot of what you're talking about, right? Like, in order for me to get my kids to eat healthy, for them to show up on time, for them to, exceed expectations from performance training standpoint, dad had to live that life and be the role model for them in order for me to even ask that, from them, right? And so seeing that relationship of like myself with my kids was kind of like the light bulb moment where it's like, well, if I expect my employees to take pride in the way that they dress and the way that they speak and being consistent content creators on social media and to live a life of character and integrity, right? I had to actually be that role model, and so when you look at the culture of the organization of what it was in 2016, 2017, 2018, it's very different than what it is today because of that transparency, because of that authenticity, right? My employees, they follow me on my personal life on social media, and my hope is that I can inspire them to achieve their personal goals and have it aligned and more importantly, integrated into their work life, right? And so, that's really what the light bulb moment was like the authenticity and the transparency, which ultimately led to me being able to hold them accountable more effectively, right? Because I was living the values that were on the wall.
I love this. It's one of the big things I work with my clients on is parents and leaders. We have this tendency to be hypocrites, right? And that one of the biggest places that shows up, it's from, I want to say a good place. It's like, guys, I want this culture and this is how we stay accountable. And this is how we, I want you to take your time off and I want this. But what are we doing? We're on all the time. We're picking up everyone's slack. We're not giving people the chance to even fix their own mistakes sometimes, right? So what is the culture in your business and can you give me an example of like how you shifted to really embody it? Because it really flows from the top.
Yeah. So when we talk about the shift, I would say that, previously I'm thinking back to 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. Really, it was driven by what were the financial results that you were able to deliver, right? And I think that the problem with having that as the main key performance indicator for success in a business is we were looking the other way, right? Whenever maybe high revenue producers were verbally abusive with their spouse, or they were, using illegal drugs, right? Or they were lying or cheating in order to get deals done, right? Because, hey, we're high fiving, we're generating revenue, we're the rainmakers, right? And so you kind of like become what you tolerate, right? And I think that until we have the confidence to say, hey, this doesn't align with our mission, vision, and values, we're going to make a change. And then the other people around it said, oh my God, they let go of that person. Oh my God, they let go of that person. Oh, that person got hired. But then the people that it was like, why are they getting hired? But then those character people are growing up and being high performers, even though they didn't have any industry experience. It creates a lot of like continuity to say, hey guys, we've evolved. And while maybe we used to tolerate this, we're not going to continue to accept this, right? And so when you look at what our values are, right, excellence is our number one core value, right? Excellence doesn't mean perfection, but it means the constant pursuit of excellence, right? Continual improvement, resilience, gratitude, professionalism, coachability, competitiveness, and our newest core value of what we've realized what separates a B player from an A player is inquisitive, right? People that are curious evolve into being creative problem solvers for our clients, which ultimately grow into high-level revenue producers for the firm. And so that's our culture. and it's really driven by excellence. And so obviously, former collegiate athletes that have a desire to win and continually improve and are willing to go through all of the bad until they hoist that trophy, those people have experienced success at this organization.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that you said inquisitive and curiosity. I'm a huge nerd about performance and, never thought I'd be back reading neuroscience, which is my first degree in psychology. Now I'm like reading it around high performance and leadership and, excellence, to your point. But I do think there is something about top tier athletes where there is like curiosity and grit. It's like this unique, it's like a little chemical reaction that just drives people beyond what the point where a lot of other people either settle or give up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're probably a little bit more resilient at taking a good old ass chewing from the CEO, right? Uh,
Yeah,
and
our coaches put us through enough growing up. Like,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so yesterday, actually, there was a sacrificial lamb. The team was struggling, and so every single leadership book says that you've got to have the coaching one-on-one conversations behind closed doors, but very intentionally, I did it publicly in front of the rest of the team because it wasn't a conversation that I had wanted to have with all 30 people. I wanted one high performer to hear it, and then for everybody else to say, I need to get my shit together. If that guy just got that, then the message is very clear, right? And so I think that's one thing as a leader is, of course, we need to be empathetic. I think being a father has allowed me to be more empathetic as a leader, right, into maybe their commitments outside of the office. And we want to promote work-life balance and integration. We want to promote a positive association with being a focus on mental health. But at the end of the day, right, we expect performance, right? And I'm not trying to hide the fact that that is critically important. Our why in the conference room in big bold letters is to be the best, to close deals, and to make money. If that isn't aligned with what your short and long-term vision is for your life, then guess what? You are not going to be a fit at Encore Search Partners. And it's perfectly okay to say that in an interview because enough people will self-select out, but then the people that stick around know exactly what they're signing up for.
And they're in it to win it, right? Like
100%.
I'm a huge believer of the values on the wall, right? Like metaphorically and actually, right?
Yeah.
Have that be so front and center. You get to build a company as an entrepreneur that you get to show up and be your best version, and you're always working on yourself, and you get people who get to show up and be fully themselves because they align, and then that's who clients also interact with. And that, I just think that is one of the most interesting parts of entrepreneurship. And
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean you need to hire a bunch of people that look like you and talk like you, right? I've got this super nerdy video guy right here on the other side of my computer monitor, right? But in seeing, Todd grow and develop as an entrepreneur himself in his side hustle, the confidence in which he speaks, the way in which he dresses, right? The way that he displays public displays of affirmation for his wife, who he's passionately in love with, makes me the proudest motherfucker in his life that doesn't share his last name. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm here to motivate and inspire not only my children, but my team. And because we invest so much in social media, hopefully our followers as well.
Absolutely. I think, again, like everybody's different, but I know for me, impact is my number one. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And it's what makes me feel good about how I spend my time and my resources. And I think that's why I really love working with impact-driven leaders, because that's who I align with. Like, we have a similar why, and their wins are so meaningful to me, and helping them get bigger impact, whether it's personal, professional, otherwise, is massive. So I love what you said. I'm the same way. I'm that way with my clients these days, but it's smaller these days than, in my previous companies.
Yeah.
We had a client who was kind of like graduating yesterday, and he'd been away and this happens a lot, but he came back with all these epiphanies. And they're things that I've dropped pebbles to. They're things that I model about how he will live his life. And like, this is a business coaching, this is a CFO, right? But it was just, he had the epiphany. We worked together for a year and he had the epiphany while he was away from the computer and, you know, living on a different schedule for a few days. He was on a trip and he just came back and he was like, I get it, you know, and he has already like is changing the way he shows up for his team, but also for himself, you know, and it really resonated with what you were saying about the health, the mindset, the personal, interpersonal relationships. And I had to like take a moment after the call. So I was so like,
I'd love to share an epiphany moment for myself that I've gotten last year. And I think your audience would really like it and could potentially apply it to their lives. But, you know, I was a millionaire at 30, you know, then I got divorced, 3 amazing children, all of the material assets that one could ever dream of. And I was still unhappy. And so I was auditing what were the times that I was the happiest in my life, right? And I think really what inspired it was I saw like an Instagram reel that said a man without purpose will seek pleasure. And I think we all know that like pleasure is fleeting, right? And the way that that shows up is through, you know, living a gluttonous lifestyle, you know, investing and spending time with the wrong, you know, women. You know, there's a lot of ways that men seek pleasure and it just leaves them consistently unfulfilled. But I looked at, you know, whenever I, you know, started my business, whenever I had my first kid, whenever I, you know, started the podcast and grew a following there, whenever I bought a house, right, with my ex-wife, there was all these different milestones in life where we were like celebrating together. And when you fast forward and you're 40 years old and you've kind of already done a lot of that stuff, there's not a lot of like new experiences, right? You know, like I've already, you know, flown on a private jet before. I've already, you see what I'm saying? Like the excitement of experiencing that, it's just, you can't replace it the first time, right? And so then I was talking to, you know, my fiance, and she was my girlfriend at the time. And I was just like, Yulia, you have this unbelievably incredible future ahead of you. And I want to live all of those wins. You know what I'm saying? And so if I can invest in you and in growing your business and your career and seeing you grow as a mother and a leader and a nonprofit director and a motivator and inspirer of others, then that will help remanufacture all of those highs that I experienced in my 20s and early 30s, right?
Yeah.
And so we've kind of like mapped out, right, our 1 year, a 3 year, or 10-year vision. We operate our relationship on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We have a mission, vision, core values, right? And it's really, really exciting because I get to like relive the growth and development and excitement and high fives of your 20s with the financial resources of being a 40-year-old man, right? So it's just really, really exciting. And then also when you look at like the steward of wealth versus whenever I'm gone, the fact that she is 16 years younger and in amazing health, I'm really optimistic and excited about creating the financial literacy for her to be the steward of what we create together over the next 40 years of my life, you know, and hopefully she outlives me by 25, 30, you know, so just a really exciting time whenever you look at, not only do I have an amazingly gorgeous, intelligent, ambitious, creative, young future wife, but to think of what we're going to do together and all the high fives and celebrations that we're going to build, that excites me more than the company hitting 25 million, right? Like the company hitting that revenue mark in 3 years is just a byproduct of having good culture and consistency, right? But what's the stuff that's going to really excite me? I don't know. My son committing to be the shooting guard at Duke, right? Yeah. You know, my other son coming in as an intern, lighting up the phones and being a cold caller at Encore Search and getting the respect from people that are consistent 7-figure earners on the team and going, that's my future CEO right there. How powerful is that going to be for me from a pride standpoint?
Yeah.
Right? It's really about the legacy.
And really like who we become and who we help along the way. I think that is so powerful. And I think it's interesting because we're seeing people talk about that more, which I love, right? The goal is really just who is the person that can achieve that goal, right? And I think I'm a huge believer that identity, and there's so much research around this, is the thing, right? You choose who you want to be, and then you just like build the habits, and like motivation is great, but really it's habits, it's routine. Like we're hardwired to fit in. So if you're hanging around people that are not going the direction you want to go, good luck, swim upstream. It's not impossible, but you're making it hard. If you are consistently every day doing things that don't align with the person you want to be, how do you?
And that's a great point, right? Identity, community, having a sense of belonging, right? Pride, self-worth. It's like, the one guy that doesn't have a job, lives with his parents, but he plays Fortnite all day, and he's like the greatest Fortnite player of all time, right? And he logs in and plays for 14 hours a day. And when he logs in and people see his username right there and the respect that he has from the community that he holds in the highest regard, is that guy successful? I would be willing to say that he is successful.
Yeah,
Because that's the identity that he chooses. And if there's other people that are bringing negativity or shame to him, then he needs to eliminate those individuals from his life, right? And so success to me doesn't mean seeing $10 million in the bank, right? Or making sure that your kid, gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Like success can show up in so many different images, right? But as long as you understand what your ambition is and you're consistent and intentional about pursuing that identity, then you can be successful.
absolutely. I think when I think about that in terms of leadership, whether that be of a business, of a community, of anything, I talk a lot about, I believe leaders are built, not born, for the most part. And often the way that we define and develop our leadership is via emulation, right? It's looking at leaders that we respect and admire. And I'm curious, how did that play out for you in a conscious way, in an unconscious way? And has that changed over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people who I respect and admired, whenever I was in my 20s are very different than who I respect and admire than me as a recently divorced single guy versus the people that I respect and admire today, right? I think a lot of it has to do with the content that I consume on social media, right? So, if I'm consuming media about guys going to clubs and getting bottle service and hanging around, people that they probably paid for or shouldn't be hanging around with, if that's the media that I consume and I'm getting FOMO that I'm not there, right? That's going to be something that, impacts me tremendously. But I think as a mature grown man, we all can say that that's probably like not a healthy influence. But whenever I started to follow people like Alex Hormozy, right, and Chris Williamson and Jordan Peterson and Sadia Khan and these people that are literally speaking to me on a day-to-day basis, I can not only emulate the way that they speak with their voice cadence and their power and enthusiasm and hand motions. That made me a better leader of my people. It made me a better inspirer of my social media audience, right? But I would say that the media that you consume really can be the driver of your mindset and just the way that you carry yourself on a daily basis. Mm. And maybe that wasn't the case 10 years ago before we really had video media in our pocket, right? When people were going to conferences or people were just trying to emulate their boss who they had direct access to. Well, now we have access to so many different resources to where like Tony Robbins can literally be our life coach and he doesn't even fucking know,
Yeah. I love that you're talking about social media because it's a huge change in society. I mean, it's massive. You know, you and I are similar age, so we grew up before it existed and have
You're not
watched
my
it.
age. What are you talking about?
Turning 40 this
Are you
summer.
serious?
Hmm.
Oh wow! Look at that. It's that Mexico glow. Look at you. Oh yeah.
And something that I think entrepreneurship, I love that it's out there. I love it's being talked about, but it's also being sold in a real nice package with a bow that it's, you know, for everyone. And I think two of the things that I often think don't get talked about or get talked about in a real glamorized way. Failure does get talked about, but often in this like glamorized way without the reality of like what it takes to like pick your ass up one more fucking time. But failure and trade-offs, how have those played a role in your leadership journey, your personal growth journey?
Oh man. I fail every single day. That's probably the first thing that I should admit, right? I didn't go to the gym this morning, right? I failed. Um, I chose to go to this client meeting in Tampa instead of going to, my 10-year-old son's basketball tournament where he had an opportunity to hold up the trophy at the end without dad there, right? And so I think that having the humility to recognize that whenever you fail, but to audit, like, was this a good failure, or was this an opportunity for me to audit my emotions and say, hey, I'm not going to let that ever happen again, right? So I think that failure is a requisite to ultimately lead to success. But yeah, I mean, I was married for 9 years, and for the bulk of that time, I was solely focused on hustling and grinding and creating wealth for my family. And sometimes that resulted in being at the office until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes it meant I had to go in on Saturdays or Sundays, and carrying the stress of losing a big deal and taking it out on my wife through having a short temper and using very aggressive, inappropriate, unkind words, right? That in retrospect, I look at and go, man, that guy was a fucking asshole. How did you even make it 9 years? Right. But do I regret, doing a lot of the hard work and building that ultimately led to the financial security that I have for my family today? No, I don't regret it. Right. But I absolutely failed as a husband. Right. And as a present father. But I think that it's what we do with experiencing that failure and recognizing the role that we played, and making a determination of, do we want to like break the cycle to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. I think that a lot of people sometimes they choose to just keep doing the same thing, and they're going to get the same result, right? And those are the people that have a second divorce, a third divorce, right? That they have another kid that they don't have a good relationship with, or they have relationships with exes that are toxic, or they're experiencing high turnover on their team, or a variety of different things. But it's like, how do we learn from those failures, and are we intentional about implementing the solution to make sure that it doesn't happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to take us back into businesses, and I'm
Okay.
curious, how did you know that you were meant to build businesses? How did you know you were meant to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. I still don't know if I'm like a good entrepreneur. So I'm really, really smart, right? I was the guy that got straight A's in school and didn't really have to study or show up. So I tell people I'm like Goodwill Hunting. You remember that movie where he was like a construction worker? Um, and whenever I was 24, I was working for a company, and one of the inside sales guys was like, damn, Jeremy, these email campaigns that you're doing, you're generating so many leads. Like, this is incredible. You could do this for a lot of different companies. So he like planted the seed that I could start a business doing these sophisticated lead generation programs to generate leads for companies. And so I started this side hustle, and it accidentally became successful whenever I was 24, enough to where I could leave my corporate job. And I did that for a couple of years, and I took a look at my client base. Here I was like 27 years old, and I was making 250 grand. And I was like, man, half my clients are staffing and recruiting companies. Like, why am I charging them $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and they're sitting here making 50,000, 80,000, 100,000 a month from the service that I'm providing? Let me start a recruiting company, right? And so I kind of like accidentally started these successful companies just because I was looking at the data, right? Maybe, efficiency, maybe even being a little bit lazy contributed to my success, because at the end of the day, it was like, well, I know that I need to like be intentional about doing all this marketing. Well, I don't want to do it. That requires a lot of hard work. Let me hire someone to focus on it, right? I know I need somebody to like do mentorship and coaching and development for the recruiters in order to maximize optimal performance. But, I kind of don't want to do it. Let me hire someone to do that. And so like, I just kept like hiring people to achieve business results. And if you have clarity and intentionality around your mission, vision, and values, then the people just kind of fucking get it, right? Yeah. And so I think that I'm just constantly evolving into this better version of myself personally and professionally, and hiring very competent people that are aligned with our goals, to where that's what's really created the success, is because I know what needs to be done, but now I'm really, really good at like executing very quickly and investing in people in order to do it for me.
I love that.
It doesn't need to be on our shoulders all the time.
Yes, and so many people struggle.
Yeah.
I've had like fights with my clients where I'm like, why don't we take some time? You reflect on my recommendation.
Yeah.
Come back to me in a few days, because they're just like, no, like whatever drives us and our beliefs. And I mean, you've spoken to this extremely eloquently throughout this conversation. Like, it is strong. It's a motherfucker to face your belief or your fear or your less than perfect moments. And, I'm a believer that is, all these things you're talking about are what the foundations of, 99% of very quote unquote successful people, whether that is financially, fulfillment wise, and generally all of those coming together is quite a, unique unicorn type situation. So I'm a big believer.
Yeah. It's funny because as we're talking, I think the commonality between a lot of successful people that I personally know is that they are not afraid to fail. Yeah. But that's kind of the commonality, right? And then I look at my fiance, who was this professional athlete, elite high performer. She's very scared to fail, and it's like, I would love for her to be an entrepreneur. I would love for her to have the freedom and flexibility to, be a content creator from a beach in the Maldives, right? But like, her education and her professional sports career have led her to be a conformist, right? A rule follower, and so I'm not trying to rewire her in any capacity. All I can do is just continue to live my life, and maybe that'll rub off on her a little bit. But with that being said, I think that the fear of failure, if you have the ability to regulate your emotions after you fail and to just keep going, I think that will be a very, very important catalyst to lead to your growth and success.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah.
What is something that you wish you had known when you were scaling your businesses?
I think that the one thing that I wish, the decision I would have made faster, is that it doesn't need to be perfect. That if you execute quickly and then you get a result, then you can pivot to what success looks like, right? So like, I think I was just like so consumed with the product being perfect, to where, let's just say I would invest 3 weeks in R&D, right? To like make sure that like it's a perfect product. Yeah. Whenever I could have just like deployed a 60% solution, listened to the market, and then like pivoted. And like during that 3 weeks, I could have already had like results, and then like ended up with the perfect product. If that makes sense.
Right.
So like, Doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be presentable.
I love that. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be presentable. Title of the episode.
Yeah. And then another thing that I wish I'd known is, I don't know, but like whenever I was small, I got a lot more business from friends and family, right? So like a lot of people love the underdog. A lot of people want to help the underdog. So don't be afraid to exploit those relationships to say, is your company hiring? I'd love to work with you guys, or this is the service that I provide. I'd love to work with you, because people want to help the small guy. Now that we're big, I don't really get a lot of business from friends and family, because I think that there's this association of like, oh, Jeremy doesn't need us, right? And I kind of like don't like that that's the association. But like, don't be afraid to lean on friends and family whenever you're just getting started. Don't be afraid. People want to help you.
That is so true. And
people want to pay full price for your fucking R-bomb, you know?
Yes, that is a core belief. I mean, entrepreneurial friends, you do not ask for discounts. You don't accept discounts. You pay for their service, or if you can't or you don't need it, you promote it. Big.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that actually goes with your first one. It doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be presentable, because I think some people don't go to their friends and family because they want to look like they've got it all together. They're like, oh no, I can't tell them that yet, or I can't tell them what I do, or like there's this like fear that you spoke about.
I'll give you an example, right? You look at a realtor and it's like, okay, when you're just getting started, you're like selling a $180,000 house. You know, like you're not getting a fucking $1 million listing. Like, don't be afraid to like post your win that you helped sell this $180,000 house for your nephew, you know? And whenever he came to you, he thought it was worth 160, and you ran the comps and you listed at 190, and you were able to provide 10,000 cash to close for a first-time home buyer, you know, a 25-year-old couple, fucking husbands in the Marine Corps. Tell the story. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be presentable.
Yeah.
And then you fucking blink your eyes, you flash forward 10 years, now you're telling a story of a $2 million house.
Yeah.
You know, but we look at this content that all of these competitors are creating, and it's so polished and so presentable, and these people are fucking fake news presenters. You know, authenticity, vulnerability, transparency, very, very important. Don't be afraid to ask friends and family.
I love it. So, if anyone has joined to hear your perspective on recruitment and on hiring, I want to get just a little bit into what you do specialize in. And I love the tagline of tough to find professional talent. You specialize in, you know, in key areas. So, you know, what do you specialize in, and how do people know when they need you?
Yeah, so if your company just received venture capital funding or private equity funding and you're looking to hire a bunch of people, we are an amazing resource to help companies achieve their business goals. Okay. You know, if you're a small privately owned company and you're looking for one or two key executives, we would also be a good resource. If you're a Fortune 1000 enterprise that's starting new business units and you're looking to hire tough to find people, we don't post the jobs on Indeed or Career Builder or Monster or LinkedIn. We're not resume farmers. We think that our clients can do a good job of finding those active candidates. We do a good job of building a targeted list and then cold calling, cold emailing, cold text messaging, and getting gainfully employed people engaged so we can get these people excited about taking a meeting with our clients. And so we're skilled storytellers and experienced headhunters that know how to poach high performers for our clients. And I built that business unit very intentionally because I knew that AI and I knew that offshoring was gonna continue to evolve and do a good job of finding the people actively looking for a job. But I'll tell you, the lawyer that's in Manhattan that's billing $3 million in revenue, he doesn't even have a fucking resume. He's not applying to your job posting. But if I cold call that guy on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and accidentally get him on the phone, he's going to give me 30 seconds to share what I got And if you're a company that has something really compelling to tell, our headhunters can tell it for you to get that person engaged.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, the poachers of the professional industry. You kind of,
Absolutely.
I was going to ask you, you kind of like stole that next question of AI. How is it changing the landscape for you? It's not.
We have AI. It's called actual intelligence. That's our AI. We've been doing it for 15 fucking years.
I love it. What do you think is a really big myth or misconception in recruitment, and kind of how do you see that play out?
I think a myth is that recruiters help people find jobs.
Mm.
I'll tell you, if your brother-in-law has been unemployed for 9 months and he's actively looking for a job, a company doesn't need to pay me $30,000 to find him, right? And so really, really good recruiters don't help people find jobs. We help find people that aren't looking for a job, and we convince them that our client is the right place for their career. So I think that that's a misconception in the industry. I think that the firms that help people find jobs will be out of business in 10 years.
Yeah. You spoke a little bit about your own kind of building your team and leadership and the values and all of those things. I'm curious what your thoughts are on, top three most important elements to both, I would say, recruit and retain top talent.
Yeah, so to recruit top talent, I think clarity, transparency, authenticity, right? Being the same person that shows up in the job interview that they're going to see every single day whenever they come to work, right? So we don't need to be on our best behavior in the interview if we know that we're going to be a very demanding leader, right? So authenticity and transparency. Another thing, I love to hire people that are better than me. I think that whenever I was younger and I was very ego driven, I needed to be the smartest person in the room, right? But it's growing up, I've realized where it's hey, if I'm hiring someone to be a one-on-one coach, they need to be better than me at that. If I need to hire someone to go out and get new logo clients and do new business acquisition, they need to be better than me at that, right? So, if all I do is hire people and teach them exactly what to do and how I do it, they're never going to be fucking better, right? Now, whenever it comes to retain top talent, I think that it's important to compensate your high performers greater than you compensate your low performers. I think the old business model of just paying people on time and grade, I think that that's antiquated, right? And so we tell our people through our social media in the interview that we run our company like a sports team, okay? So it doesn't matter if you've been our quarterback for 7 years and that you've led the league in touchdowns. If that person comes in and they run faster, they throw farther, and they give me a higher probability to score touchdowns, they're behind the center, right? And so having that culture of performance and excellence, that creates consistency and a focus on continual improvement and professional development where I don't need to be the micromanager for the veterans because they know the young associates are ready to take their job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then whenever I start handing the ball off to that 24-year-old young professional that's coming in, lighting up the phones and working twice as many hours as everyone else, whenever she becomes a 300K earner, there's no negative stigma. She earned it. She's the fucking running back that's now scoring the touchdowns, right? And so that performance-driven culture is really what drives our stickiness.
Just in the nitty-gritty of that, do you think that most companies should operate on a combination, like variable comp be a component of compensation for almost anything?
I'm not here to tell any other entrepreneur how they should run their business. What works well for me is to hire people that believe in the mission, vision, and values of the firm, give them best-in-class tools in order to be successful, then get the fuck out of their way to see what they come up with. And if they come up with something that's not great, go out and find another person. Don't be afraid of it.
Yes. It's one of the hardest I always say difficult decisions is a huge part of leadership. And, we've talked about self-awareness and regulation, but sometimes you have to make those. And sometimes it's your day one diehards. You wouldn't have a company without them, but they're not a fit. They're not performing anymore. And it's a disservice to everyone.
And I have a quick experience here because I know we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah.
But the day one diehards, there's definitely some like social currency that they have that's different than the person that's highly more educated or more intelligent. Or just because Larry Sanders has been with me for 13 years doesn't mean that he needs to be my chief operating officer, right? So sometimes that camaraderie, sometimes that loyalty, sometimes all of that sweat equity that they put in, just because they've been here the longest doesn't mean they need to be your. Larry's our director of IT, and he loves being our director of IT. And he has interviewed people that are now his boss in the company, and that's perfectly okay because I never set him up for failure just because he was here first. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. That was such an articulate explanation of what I am constantly explaining to people, right? You put somebody in a role that they're never going to succeed in is a disservice to them as a human. That fucking sucks. It impacts everyone else because they got to pick it up, the slack. It impacts how everyone sees you because they see you allowing someone to be a failure.
It's so unfair. It's so unfair. I used to be so pissed off that my little brother wasn't me. And I was, man, I saw so much potential in this guy, right? And I wanted him to be me. He shares my fucking last name. He's our director of operations and compliance, right? Like, he's not a rainmaker by any stance, but this guy doesn't let anything fall through the cracks. He keeps us in our lane, right? And he makes sure that the revenue generators can perform at an elite level with 100% certainty that they're not going out of bounds, right? And so whenever I realigned my expectations and realized that everybody didn't need to be me, I just needed to exploit what they were really, really great at, that's really what allowed us to grow.
I love that. So we're going to wrap up. Before we do, I have a couple rapid fire questions. It could be one word, it could be quick. You can pass if you don't have something for it, but it's just a fun way that we wrap up, and then we'll make sure everyone knows how to find you.
Awesome.
You ready? All right. What is one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Oh, as a leader, having children, I think, has made me far more empathetic and ambitious.
I love that. What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
It feels like I don't have to make any decisions because my team makes all the decisions because they understand the mission, vision, values, and I don't need to be the decision. That's whenever strategy is going really, really well.
Yeah. Is there a book, podcast, or person that just cracked something open for you?
Oh, I think that Alex Hormozy was a great person to follow on social media that created a tremendous amount of light bulb moments for myself in fitness, in relationship, in ambition, creativity, delegation, elevation, content creation, articulation. Alex Hormozy has been a great influence in my life.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
In my business, never again will I hire somebody at a 200,000 salary level because the expectations are just too high on day one. I'd rather give them like 100K and then a big variable compensation because then they can have a little bit more runway to develop into their potential. But when you set the bar too high, it just sets people up for failure.
Yeah. And if you had a free weekend and zero obligations, how would you spend it?
I would definitely go to my kids' basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments. I have so much pride and joy in seeing those kids win or seeing the look on their face whenever they lose and their commitment to becoming better each and every day. And then I kind of like hanging out with like the other parents in the stands too. It's kind of cool, you know?
Cool. Yeah. Jeremy, thank you so much. This was such an incredible conversation. There are so many nuggets in here. If people do want to follow you, find you, work with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. It's my name, Jeremy Jenson, and I've got a little goat emoji next to my name, and I'm the CEO of Encore Search Partners. And then if you want to follow my personal life as a spouse, as an entrepreneur, as a father, it's just at Jeremy Jenson on Instagram is the best place to follow.
Amazing. We'll make sure to put those in the show notes. Thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to Peep My Creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.